Poole, and today we're going over personality. So we're firstly going to define what personality is. So your textbook through OpenStax Psychology states that personality is the long-standing traits and patterns that propel individuals to consistently think, feel, and behave in specific ways. Now, it comes from the Latin word persona, which means a mask worn by an actor. And in ancient times, theatrical masks were used to represent / project a specific personality trait. All right, so let's go through a little bit of history of personality perspectives. Now, firstly, we got to talk about Franz Gall in 1780 created what's known as phrenology. Okay, so phrenology is considered pseudoscientific, and pseudoscience quite simply means fake science. So he proposed that the distances between bumps on the skull reveal a person's personality traits, their character, as well as mental abilities. And over time, he was discredited for a lack of empirical support because, as we know now, you can't just measure the distances and fill the distances between the bumps on your skull and examine one's personality adequately. But it didn't stop him from trying to do so and being relatively successful early on with this particular quote-unquote field of study. Now, another historical perspective includes Immanuel Kant in the 17th century. He agreed with Galen that individuals could be categorized into one of the four temperaments. So let's go through these four and let's see if you identify with either of the following. So firstly, choleric or choleric, whichever way you like to pronounce it. These individuals are excitable, egocentric, they're exhibitionist, they are impulsive, histrionic, which means dramatic, as well as active. Now, sanguine, these individuals are playful, easygoing, sociable, carefree, hopeful, and contented. Now, for those who are more so phlegmatic, these individuals are reasonable, principled, controlled, persistent, steadfast, and calm. When it comes to melancholic, a lot of us have heard of this word before. These individuals are more so anxious, worried, unhappy, suspicious, serious, and thoughtful. So in the comments, let me know if you identify with one of these four personality temperaments as identified by Immanuel Kant. Okay, moving forward. Now, when it comes to psychodynamic perspectives, we've got in the 20th century, we got Sigmund Freud. We've all heard of at least Sigmund Freud when it comes to psychology once in our life before. So what Freud thought is that the first comprehensive theory of personality explaining both abnormal and abnormal behaviors. He had that first comprehension of theory of personality. Now, he proposed that unconscious drives influenced by sex, aggression, and childhood sexuality and experiences influence your personality. Remember, Freud is an individual who thinks that who you are is a result of unconscious processes as well as earlier childhood experiences. He thinks that your personality tends to be set in stone by the time you reach adolescence through a series of stages of a psychosexual development. And whenever there's difficulties in one of those stages, that can lead to the fruition of mental difficulties. Now, neo-Freudians, aka just new Freudians, they agreed that childhood experiences matter, but they put a less emphasis on sex and more so focused on social environment and the effects of culture on personality. So how does your environment, your nurture, impact who you are when it comes to personality? Okay, let's talk about Freud's psychodynamic perspective. Now, again, as I already mentioned, he thinks that you have what's known as an unconscious mind. So these are mental activities that we are unaware of and don't have access to. These are the things that influence us without us really knowing in day-to-day situations. Okay, and according to Freud, these are not my words, this is Freud. He thinks that we really only have about 1/10 of access to our minds, kind of similar to this iceberg over here where most of the iceberg is underwater and you can't see it, and the little bit that you can see is above water, and that's what we can access. He also says that unacceptable urges and desires are kept in our unconscious mind through repression. okay, because apparently these unacceptable urges and desires are not socially acceptable. Now, the information in our unconscious does affect our behavior, although we are unaware of it. That's something that I can agree with. There are mental faculties in day-to-day moments that we can't access that influence who we are. Now, some of us have heard before what's known as a Freudian slip. Now, a Freudian slip, according to Freud, he's a big determinist, so there's no mistakes. Everything happens for a reason, and there are prior causes for those reasons. Okay, and so Freud suggests that slips of the tongue, whenever you accidentally say something that you didn't mean to, are urges that are accidentally slipping out of our unconscious. It's not that they are a mistake, it's that it's our unconscious mind slipping through and that we did mean it, or there's some sort of meaning behind it for whatever reason that may be. Okay, so Freud also has the concept of what's known as an id, ego, and superego. He thinks that when you have a balanced id and superego, that will develop into a healthy personality. Whenever there's an imbalance between the two, this can lead to neurosis, or the tendency to experience negative emotions such as anxiety disorders or unhealthy behaviors. So to break this down and to put it maybe a little bit more relatable to you, the id is like the devil on your shoulder. It relies on the pleasure principle. It wants what it wants when it wants. Now, your superego is that angel on your shoulder. You've seen these in movies and TV shows where you got the devil on your shoulder and the angel on your shoulder that pops up. And the superego wants to do right all the time at every moment. And so what the ego comes in and does, and like in the movies and TV shows, that you in the center are having to decide and distinguish between the two. And the ego relies on the reality principle. So how can we do what's socially acceptable by the superego, but while also satisfying the id? So he's trying to compromise, or the ego is trying to compromise between the two. All right,